Regulation G is developing in these online tours, and we want to talk about the top non-restricted Pokemon in the format right now. So there's a lot of interesting developments in the format as it sits currently. First and foremost, we need to talk about Incineroar. This Pokemon is everywhere right now. It's just incredibly good, and it's running a lot of different sets. As it sits, you're seeing a lot of safety goggles, you're still seeing Citrus Berry pop up, and you're either seeing Terra Ghost or you're seeing Terra Water on this particular Pokemon. A lot are opting for more of a fake out. You're seeing knockoff, you're seeing the parting shot, the usual Incineroar stuff, but then this last slot gets a little hairy. You're seeing a lot of change up in the Incineroar options. Occasionally you'll see the Flare Blitz that you normally see on Incineroar, but you're also seeing options for like Will-O-Wisp on rain teams that you're bringing Incineroar to, or you're also seeing options for Taunt to stop Trick Room setups. So Incineroar is seeing a lot of different uses and playing a lot more of a supportive role going into Regulation G than it normally does with the Flare Blitz option, which I think is pretty interesting as far as Incineroar is concerned. It just kind of fits a very good role as being a multi-purpose tool. It just does so much in the current format depending on the team you bring it to, and it's really, really interesting. So Urshifu Rapid Strike is still seeing a ton of play, which makes a lot of sense. This is pretty much always running Choice Scarf, but if it's not running Choice Scarf, it is running that Mystic Water option. You're seeing a lot of Terra Water. You're just doing as much damage as possible because a lot of Pokemon are popping up in the format that are really benefiting Urshifu's, particularly Pelliper in question. So you're just seeing pretty standard stuff on this in the form of like Surging Strikes, Close Combat, Aqua Jet, U-Turn. And this is just a really solid Pokemon for dishing out a ton of damage very early, taking an early KO, and then rotating out and letting something else come in to continue the work. You're seeing it on Kyogre teams, you're seeing it on Trick Room setup teams because Pelliper is becoming very common on the Trick Room teams. So you're seeing it as like a fast mode option on a lot of those teams, which I think is pretty interesting for this Pokemon. You're seeing it kind of change a bit, whether it be the Choice Scarf or the Mystic Water, but it's still very good. Being able to hit through Protect is just incredibly powerful. So no shock that this Pokemon is still popping up and being so popular in the current format. Now, Rillaboom is still a menace. It's just, you know, a lot of these are going to be the standard stuff that you're seeing all the time, whether this be the Assault Vest variant or the Miracle Seed variant or Meadow Plate, whatever the case may be. This Pokemon's still popping up. Woodhammer, Grassy Glide, all that stuff is super, super good. Having the access to Fake Out is incredibly solid. But on top of that, there are a lot of Indeedee female running around, as well as some Miraidon, not a ton of Miraidon, but it is there. So having the option to set the Grassy Surge on this Pokemon and be able to control the terrain a bit more really helps the team out, especially because Ogerpon is also very popular right now, whether it be any of the variants. I'm seeing some Cornerstone play, I'm seeing Wellspring play, I'm seeing Hearthflame play. So a lot of those are going to benefit from the Grassy Surge as well, which is really good for this Pokemon. So Rillaboom is just super, super good. Like, these are the three Pokemon you're seeing a ton of right now, especially, you know, it just does that nice Fire, Water, Grass core that you can play into so well. For that reason, I think that these are just really staples on a lot of teams. Amoonguss, no shock here. Amoonguss is good. Everybody's surprised by this. Now, Amoonguss is seeing a handful of different things, whether it be Rocky Helmet or Citrus Berry. It really depends on the team that you're running. Obviously, you're running Regenerator on this thing, and the Terra type either goes from Water or it goes to Dark. And there's a couple different reasons for this. Water, obviously, a very good defensive typing for Amoonguss, but the Dark typing makes a lot of sense, especially if you're running this on a more Trick Room oriented team, but there's like a fast mode option or like Tornadus or something on the opposing team. It stops the taunt, but also gives you play into Calyrex Shadow, which is really, really nice for this Pokemon. Still standard stuff on Amoonguss. You're seeing like Spore. Pollen Puff has made a resurgence. You're seeing less Sludge Bomb in this format. You're just seeing a lot of the standard Amoonguss stuff here. But this is still an incredibly powerful Pokemon as a good defensive pivot tool. And you will see it pop up a lot with like the Incineroar and the Urshifu. And it is popping up a lot on those Trick Room teams because it is slower naturally than Calyrex Ice. If you're running a 0 speed, you are going to be slower than that Calyrex Ice. So that is really, really nice for this particular Pokemon. Oh, I put it at level 0, we went at level 50. So yeah, you are slower than that Calyrex Ice, which gives you a lot of play into that Pokemon, giving you a really good matchup in the Trick Room scenarios where that Pokemon's popping up. That is one of the best restricted Pokemon right now, so having that option to play into it so effectively with Amoonguss is really, really powerful, and I do like that a fair bit. So Amoonguss, really, really solid. Tornadus still popping up a ton, whether it be on Kyogre teams or just other fast mode teams. It does have manual weather, which is fantastic, whether it be rainy day, rain dance, excuse me, or sunny day. Really good Pokemon for those Kyogre and Groudon teams. Just being able to control the weather in such a powerful way is really solid for this Pokemon. I will say this is probably more prominent on those Kyogre teams. Being able to set the rain back up for Kyogre and allow Kyogre to just go for like water spouts over and over and over and over is so incredibly powerful. It's something that just keeps popping up. Plus, pairing this with the Kyogre and being able to immediately click Bleak Wind Storm turn 1 is so solid. Being able to just get that immediate 100% accurate damage off is very powerful for this Pokemon. And you're seeing like, obviously you're running like Tailwind on this thing, but you're seeing like Taunt or Protect as the final option for this Pokemon, whether it be to shut down opposing issues like Thundurus is popping up on Kyogre teams, which is pretty annoying with Eerie Impulse and things like that, and able to taunt some of those Trick Room setters, which is really nice. The best thing for this right now seems to be Terra Dark. It plays into Shadow Rider Calyrex a lot better, and it stops the taunt onto your Tornadus from opposing Tornadus, or like I was mentioning, Thundurus is popping up a little bit here and there. So this Pokemon really is benefiting from the Terra Dark in this format quite a bit. Raging Bolt. This Pokemon's still good. It's still the electric dragon Pokemon of choice. And you can run it with a lot of different options, just like you could previously, whether it be the lefty set with Calm Mind or Assault Vest. I'm seeing a lot of Assault Vest mainly because of the fact that you're seeing this on like Groudon teams quite a bit, because, or Koraidon teams as well, because this Pokemon is able to go for just Photosynthesis procced Thunderbolts, which is really good because of the next Pokemon on the list. Thunderbolt's incredibly good. Thunderclap's very nice as well. Draco. And the big thing with this Pokemon is you're able to actually click Snarl in front of Shadow Rider, which is incredibly powerful in the current format. So this option is really nice, gives you that extra bulk into those special attacking matchups, and then also just the ability to click Thunderbolt into a lot of powerful Pokemon, especially because the next Pokemon on the list is becoming so popular. And that Pokemon is Pelliper. Pelliper is actually really good in Regulation G. It is currently on so many different teams, and it doesn't have to be on one specific archetype. It's on a lot of different teams that are just benefiting from the rain. So obviously you're running Drizzle on this thing, and you're seeing it play a more bulky role. Because you want this thing to last longer, you are seeing a little bit more defensive investment on this thing. And you're seeing it with like Covert Cloak, Terra Grass to handle the Amoonguss matchup pretty effectively. Safety Goggles is another thing I'm seeing. I've seen some Life Orb on this thing, but you're running it with like Weather Ball. Weather Ball is really good on this. You're seeing Hurricane for that 100% accurate flying stab, which is really solid. And then you're seeing like Wide Guard and either Protect or Tailwind in this final slot. This is giving you options as far as playing it on a more Trick Room oriented team, because Pelliper is naturally a very slow Pokemon, which is really solid for this. You can play it on Trick Room teams and have that Wide Guard support on the Trick Room setup, so that's usually running the Protect in that instance. But if you're running it on a faster team, looking at things like Zacian or things like that, this Pokemon does benefit from the Tailwind option, giving you that speed control is really nice as well. So Pelliper's seen a ton of play, and because of the fact that, you know, Groudon and Koraidon are a thing, this plays so nicely into those Pokemon. It can KO a Koraidon with its Hurricane. It can go for Weather Ball if it terrestrializes. Same goes for Groudon. You can avoid the Precipice Blades because you're a flying type, but also be able to Wide Guard the Precipice Blades and then be able to hit them with a Weather Ball. Very powerful Pokemon in the format right now. And you're seeing it pop up on a ton of different teams. It's actually crazy how popular Pelliper's being in the current format. Now, Ogerpon is on this list, and Ogerpon is really just, in general, like, this could be Hearthflame, it could be Cornerstone, I've even seen standard Ogerpon pop up. Ogerpon's just very good right now. We talked earlier about Urshifu Rapid Strike. This obviously plays very nicely into that, plays very nicely into the Kyogre matchups as well. Being able to have that kind of control, but also pairs very nicely on Trick Room teams. Being able to follow me and do things of that nature is very powerful for this particular Pokemon. Allows you to get Trick Room up, allows you to deal with other threats in the format like Incineroar, things like that. And with Pelliper being so good, this makes a lot of sense to boost that Ogerpon Ivy Cudgel for specifically the Water Ogerpon, but other Ogerpons are seeing a lot of play as well. Cornerstone's very good on Trick Room teams because of the fact you can follow me and you have Sturdy, so they have to hit you twice just so that way you can get your Trick Room up and start going in. So definitely a solid option in the format right now. No matter what Ogerpon you take, there's a lot of really good ways to play Ogerpon in the current format. We have Farigiraf. This makes a ton of sense considering that Calyrex Shadow Rider is so good. it can't hit you with its Astral Barrage. Its Psychic isn't doing a ton of damage to you, right? So you have a really powerful option to get your Trick Room up and then just start doing big damage with your opposing Pokemon. I've seen both variants of this running around, whether it be the Throat Spray set that is super common, with like Hyper Voice and, you know, going for Psychics and things like that. But I'm also seeing a spike in Citrus Berry that is seeing a lot of play, and you're doing like Helping Hand, Trick Room. You're running like Dazzling Gleam or Psychic for the Amoonguss matchup. Terra Fairy or Dragon seems to be the more popular choices on Farigiraf right now, and it makes a lot of sense just to get that Trick Room up. But also, stopping the priority without the need for terrain is really good. So it helps you get those Trick Rooms up that much more effectively, and I really like Farigiraf for that option. Urshifu Dark, still very good. It pops up a fair bit here and there. It's not as popular as Rapid Strike, which makes sense. It really has been Rapid Strike the majority of the time in Scarlet and Violet, except for middle of regulation F there. For a while, Urshifu Dark was doing better, but now we're seeing Rapid Strike return to the forefront in that regard. But this is still really good, plays nicely into the Calyrex Shadow, just does big damage with close combat, Wicked Blow, things of that nature. Really good Pokemon right now. Still hitting through Protect is incredibly powerful, so this Pokemon just makes a lot of sense. I've seen Choice Band and I've seen Focus Sash, the pretty much standard Durshifu stuff, but this is still just a really good option into a lot of stuff in the format. Hits Cali Ice super effectively with Wicked Blow. Just a really powerful option in the format. Indeedee Female, still good. You're able to set Psychic Surge. You're able to, you know, Psychic Seed, Safety Goggles, whatever the case may be on this particular Pokemon. You're seeing like Terra Fairy still, Terra Water on this thing to avoid the Kyogre matchup and things like that. Just a very good Pokemon still. Being able to redirect with Follow Me is very solid. Gives you that control of the terrain like I was mentioning earlier with Rillaboom. With Rillaboom and Miraidon being so popular, having access to that Indeedee is very nice. It's just a very good Pokemon all around. So I definitely think that this is still popping up, but I think Farigiraf is just seeing more play because of the priority in the format, being able to deal with that. And it does fill that similar role to Farigiraf, being able to avoid the Astral Barrage from Cali's Shadow and also be able to avoid the Psychic from Cali's Shadow. Really solid option. You're seeing this paired a lot with like Ice Rider, Lunala, Dawnwing, things like that. It is more of a hard Trick Room oriented Pokemon, and in that sense you are just kind of using the Follow Me for redirection, getting the Trick Room up, and then being able to allow this Pokemon to either rotate and then get something else in that is going to be able to deal some damage, and then rotating this back in later for terrain control or things of that nature. And it is just a very solid option. One that really only pops up in restricted formats, like this Pokemon never saw play until like Sword and Shield with Cali Shadow, is Mienshao. And this is a really good Pokemon. You're seeing this on both Cali Shadow as well as Cali Ice teams. Because of the fact that it gets access to Wide Guard, it does get access to a really fast Fake Out, is really popular for this thing. Close combat's very powerful on this thing. You're able to dish out some big damage with the close combat. This is like always running Focus Sash. Because of the fact that this thing is very frail. You're able to basically get in, Fake Out, Wide Guard, whatever you need to, and then basically let this thing go down to let something else come in. Now, you are seeing it on the Cali Ice teams because you can set Trick Room while also setting Coaching turn 1 to boost the attack and defense of Cali Ice, which is really strong. But if you're not seeing it in that regard, you can just use Feint and be able to break a Protect and allow Cali Shadow to do big damage through a Protect, which is really powerful. So this really does pop up a fair bit into the restricted formats because of all of the spread moves that are so popular. Glacial Lance, Precipice Blades, Water Spout, Origin Pulse, Astral Barrage. There's so much spread damage in the format. Expanding Force. There's so much going on in the format that Wide Guard benefits from, and this Pokemon really just enjoys dealing with that with a Wide Guard. Lando I is still seeing some play. This is pretty much standard Lando I, no real change in the format as it sits right now. You're seeing Sheer Force, Life Orbs, Terra Steel or Terra Poison, and it's this pretty typical stuff of like Substitute, Earth Power, Sludge Bomb, and Protect, or Sandsear Storm over Substitute if you're running this on like a Kyogre team. This Pokemon is still popping up quite a bit and just works very nicely. I will say its usage has probably dropped because of Cali Ice existence. Being forced to Terra in front of that thing is a little scary. So I definitely think that it is not quite as good, but it's still a solid option as playing into like Raging Bolts and stuff like that. The Sludge Bomb option into a Rillaboom is really good. So this Pokemon's still seeing some play and is still really solid in that regard. Getting into Trick Room stuff, Ursaluna Bloodmoon, really good still. Shocker to everybody. This is running a handful of different things, whether it be Throat Spray. Throat Spray is a little less consistent than it was previously, mainly because of the fact that like Wide Guard is so popular. So I think the Throat Spray is a little scarier to rock and roll with. I think Life Orb is just better. Mainly because of the fact that you can go for a Bloodmoon and knock out the Wide Guard user with that, and then go for Hyper Voices after you've dealt with the Wide Guard user. I think that this is just a touch more consistent. Still rocking the Terra Normal to do a ton of damage with this thing, but it's still the standard stuff here. You got Bloodmoon, you've got Hyper Voice, you've got your Earth Power, and you've got Protect. Like pretty standard stuff on this, no real change, but it is still incredibly powerful. The Mind's Eye ability is very nice because you are still able to hit those like Flutter Manes. You're able to hit the Shadow Rider, Calyrex, things like that. We didn't touch on Flutter Mane, but Flutter Mane is still very good. Flutter Mane's still very good because of the fact that if you're not running Cali Shadow, it is just that good coverage option for a ghost type Pokemon. It still does massive damage. You're mainly seeing this run with Protect if it's not on a Sun team. If it's on a Sun team, you are still seeing the choice specs with the Terra boost, well, not the Terra boost, the Photosynthesis boost on its speed. You are still seeing this pop up a fair bit, and this is really just doing normal stuff. On the non-Sun teams, you're seeing a lot of Focus Sash pop back up because there's so many hard hitters in the format. Having that Focus Sash and being able to get 2 attacks off is really powerful for this Pokemon. So I think that's a really solid option as far as Flutter Mane goes. You're just seeing a return of the Focus Sash on this, really. So that way you have options to go for Protects. You have options to go for more attacks with this particular Pokemon, because again, there are a ton of hard-hitting Pokemon in the format that just really deal with Flutter Mane pretty effectively. So being able to dish out all that damage is very, very nice. Standard Ursaluna, very good still. Little less good with the rise of Pelliper. It's a little scary with Pelliper. You do underspeed Pelliper under Trick Room, which is really nice. So you do have to consider that variable. This does deal with the Pelliper under Trick Room pretty effectively. You can go for a Facade and knock out the Pelliper, do whatever the case may be. Really good Pokemon still. Still Flame Orb stuff. You are seeing a bit of Swords Dance on this pop up a bit more with like Earthquake. I personally am thinking like Headlong Rush and Earthquake is really solid. It gives you the option if they do have a Wide Guard user. That way you don't have to worry about the Earthquake getting blocked by Wide Guard, and you still have that stab ground attack. I think this is just really consistent with this particular Pokemon, but you are seeing that Swords Dance pop up a fair bit to boost that Facade even farther. So really solid Pokemon still. You're still seeing a lot of Terra Ghost on this thing. It also plays very nicely into Calyrex Shadow because of the fact that you are a normal type. You cannot be hit by the Astral Barrage, which is really, really powerful for this. Gallade is actually still good. It's very good. You're seeing either Focus Sash or not Clear Amulet, Scope Lens on this thing. Scope Lens I think is really solid for this with Sharpness. You're able to run the Psycho Cut and the Sacred Sword. And that is really, really powerful for this. And then you're either running like, and it does get access to Wide Guard, which is why it's so good. And then you're either running Trick Room or Leaf Blade on this thing with Terra Grass. And this plays nicely into the Amoonguss matchup. It does big damage into Kyogre. It just does a ton of damage into a lot of stuff in the format. With the Scope Lens too, even if you get intimidated, you can ignore the Intimidate because you're critting so frequently with Psycho Cut. And if you're running Leaf Blade with that as well, you're just doing a ton of damage and ignoring the attack drops on this Pokemon, which is incredibly solid for Gallade. I still think it's such a good option in the format. A little less used with Pelliper. It is a little scary with Pelliper in play. Being able to just Hurricane you is very scary, but Gallade is still a really, really cool option. Archaludon, still seeing a good bit of play. Pretty standard Archaludon stuff. You know, you're rocking Assault Vest with the Stamina ability. I have seen a couple Stalwarts pop up here and there, which is pretty interesting. Stalwart is very, very cool, especially with the redirection that is available at the time. With Follow Me and stuff with Indeedee. Stalwart is cool, but I still think the Stamina is just better. You can run it on a lot of those teams that are rocking the Pelliper, which I think is cool. You don't necessarily have to run this with Kyogre. You can just run this on a Pelliper team and get away with it as well, which I think is really solid, and use another restricted Pokemon in the place of Kyogre, which I think is really powerful. So I think that because of the dominance of Pelliper right now, Archaludon is in a really good place. You're still rocking Draco Meteor, you can run Snarl on this thing if you want, but typically you're still seeing Body Press and Flash Cannon on this thing. and this Pokemon is just really, really good still. You're able to dish out a ton of damage and start body pressing stuff. It's just a really, really good Pokemon, and it's getting even better now that Pelliper is so popular because it deals with the Pelliper so effectively. So really good option into that. Kyogre teams are actually seeing a little spike in use because Archaludon is such a good option into that Pelliper that is becoming so much more popular. Chien Pao, still seeing some play here and there. Not on a ton of teams, but it is still good. In the fact that it plays nicely with Zacian teams. Zacian really likes Chien Pao because even if you get intimidated, you're still doing a ton of damage with the defensive drop that Sword of Ruin provides. No real significant changes. You're still seeing either Terra Stellar or Terra Ghost on this thing, and it's just rocking the standard Ice Spinner, Sucker Punch stuff that you're seeing so commonly on Chien Pao. Really good Pokemon still. Chi-Yu, same goes for that. You're still seeing Chi-Yu pop up, a little less so than Chien Pao, I'd argue, but it's good on those Koraidon teams, setting the sun and being able to just do massive damage with the Beads of Ruin, dropping the special defense and going for like heat waves and overheats and things like that. Really strong Pokemon, and plays it well into Cali Shadow, which is really solid because you are that dark type, and being able to Snarl or Dark Pulse, whatever the case may be, is really, really powerful for Chi-Yu. So I really think Chi-Yu is still in a good place in the format. And then the last Pokemon that we're going to talk about here is Gouging Fire. It is not as popular as it once was, but it's still very good. You're seeing it on Groudon teams. You're seeing it on Zacian teams with booster energy. It's just a very good Pokemon as far as having consistent buffs for your team in the form of Howl. Really, really good Pokemon still in that regard. Still rocking Breaking Swipe. Honestly, Burning Bulwark's really solid, especially into those Cali Ice teams. You can get the burn by going for the Burning Bulwark. Really good Pokemon into those matchups as well. So I think that Gouging Fire is just a really solid option still on certain teams. I think it's the best on Zacian teams because those Groudon teams are really struggling right now with Pelliper. So I think that this plays so nicely on mainly the Zacian teams, but a little bit here and there on Koraidon teams. I think Zacian really is the bread and butter of this particular Pokemon because you can just keep Howl spamming and doing a ton of damage with your Zacian without the need to worry about Intimidate, and it's very solid in that regard. So those are the top 20 non-restricted Pokemon in Regulation G. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, what you're team building with, what you think is best. But I'm keen to see what the format continues developing for. We're getting close to Indianapolis, which is the first regional of the format, which is really exciting. So let me know your thoughts. Sub if you're not already, and if you want to share Reg G teams that'll be featured here on the channel in the future, be sure to check out the Discord. But until next time, peace.